remember? Do you remember? Do you remember? Do you remember?
Do you remember when Jesus died? Do you remember how his mother cried? Do you remember his crown of thorns? This heart of mine, even now still more. I remember.
Remember, do you remember?
Our host choir is very close to me. I've been hearing your music since before I was born. I already mentioned my mom was a member of the group. My granddad, Willie Carter, directed the group for many years. My great-great-aunt, Eudora Field, started the group many, many years ago. And my favorite and only uncle, Tony Carter, currently directs the group. Their songs are being sung all across the country, but their latest CD, Never Let Me Go, is available for you to buy the CD. They won a Camel Award in 2004 for the best choir group. Put your hands together for the Sheldon Heights a cappella group.
When I came to Chicago, I was 15 years old, and I landed on the south side, connected myself with the Michigan Avenue Church, which my aunt Eudora was the course director at that time. And of course, this was in the early 50s during that time. So some of the groups at that time at Michigan Avenue was one of the chorus group, the older chorus group was called the Chimes of Melody.
My name is Dual Gant Sr. In 1946, I arrived at the Michigan Avenue Church of Christ, which is now the Sheldon Heights Church of Christ. Immediately on my arrival, I became the song leader. We had a very fine group to sing congregationally wise. However, we had an older group that I work with along with Sister Eudora Whitfield. And we had a good time singing and rehearsing for several years while I was there. And we had one of the best singing congregations in the Brotherhood that I know of anywhere due to our rehearsing and liking to sing and getting involved in singing.
One of the quartet that was singing at that time was called the Rising Sun.
And in that quartet was my dad,
William Jones, sang with the Rising Sun, Brother Carlton.
Brother Kennedy's son, Carlton Kennedy, Frank McCall, the ultimate bass, Junior Sowell.
And that was one of the persons.
And Edward Knuckles, but everybody called him Spooky. And they sang Soul Stir songs. And when I could remember Brother Kennedy letting them be known, even though it was sort of, you didn't hear that kind of singing, and you didn't have many programs when I was a girl. We hadn't really gotten to that point of having group singing so much. But Brother Kennedy was he was very flexible and encouraging. And my dad said, if it hadn't been for Brother Kennedy, a lot of these things would not have started. So they would go and sing in programs. And when you would hear that they were going to be there, people would be shouting and screaming. And they were called the Rising Suns.
And then the youth harmonizers were singing.
Who were the directors at that time?
At that time, it was Brother Dual Gant and Sister Eudora Whitfield. Brother Gant was minister, so he assisted Sister Whitfield, but Sister Whitfield was the director.
And they had uniforms.
Now, this particular time was a lot of changes going on in the world. In particular, when we were looking at new uniforms, because they had been wearing robes for many years. So there was a change. Now, what was so interesting about this change, we were all going to look for the ladies' uniforms, and we had to keep in mind, we were constantly reminded by our senior ladies that are chorus members that we had to be very careful about the hemline of the dresses or the skirts that we were going to choose.
Sister Whitfield had her own way of doing things. She had a mind that she wanted us to present. When we would travel, she would be conscious of what we had on, what we wore, and also our conduct. She had certain rules that had to be met, and she demanded that they be met.
Now, we're talking about a time in which you had the emergence of maxi dresses, but those hemlines started to go to minis and micro minis. So we were told to make sure that we knew that we were representing Michigan Avenue and that we were young Christian ladies. Now, when we finally decided on those uniforms, we were again told that we had to get an approval. And who was that approval from? Sister Eudora Whitfield.
I do remember her having us to put on these dresses, and so she could see how they fit and what, needed to be done, per se. Now, when we put the dresses on, the hem in the dresses.
I remember her looking at them and looking at us up and down, and then taking her measuring stick and from the floor measuring each hem to make sure they all hit pretty much at the same spot.
Some of us were short, some of us were tall, but she made sure that she hemmed those dresses so that the hems were all even all the way across. So if you're standing and looking at the hems of the ladies on the first row, they were all exact, all even.
Which was really, really kind of, we were wondering, well, what is going on here? But we didn't say a word.
She took her hem stitcher, being a seamstress, and ripped the seam out of every one of our dresses, because the dresses were at the knee or above the knee, and she wanted them below the knee. So that's what she did.
Wow.
Before we leave that point there, I have to say something about that, because Brother William Jones Sr. taught the young harmonizer a song about these dresses. And it was entitled, Let the Church Roll On. Oh. One of the verses of that song is said, if there's a sister in the church with a dress too short, and we will ask our bass singer, which will leave out, what you gonna do about it? There's a sister in the church with a dress too short. We would have a lot of fun singing those songs.
That's funny. I remember as a preteen going next door to the church building to where Sister Eudora Whitfield lived and listening to the youth harmonizers rehearse. I felt that I was in heaven. You see, Sister Whitfield was a wonderful director. She was no nonsense and she insisted on perfection. I didn't realize it at the time, but she was one of only a very few women directors in the Churches of Christ at that time. I guess my grandfather was a pioneer of some sort in that regard.
And then from the youth harmonizers, we organized a group. In fact, Brother William Jones' father organized our quartet, and we call ourselves the Young Harmonizers. And 4 of us sang together. That was myself, Levi Eckers, my cousin, Kenneth, my cousin, and Robert, Bob, we call him Bob. All sing together.
Trying to make heaven my home where I'm leaving the river, bathe my weary soul. I'm gonna put on, walk the streets of gold where I want to be ready. I want to be ready when it calls. Just trying to set my house in order. Walking through the land, talking through the land, singing through the land, talking through the land, walking through the land just like John. Walking through the land just like John.
As we grew older, Willie Carter and then Wendell Gunn took over the duties from Sister Whitfield. However, the quality of music and the selection of songs remained exceptional. I say we because I was among a new group of youth harmonizers who were blessed to join the existing group. My cousins, Cheryl and Bobby, along with Tyrone and Robin Jones and Belinda and Keith Watson, were among the new bloods. Deborah Rogers joins us soon. We formed a lasting friendship since then. I believe our voices blended very well with the older mentor group, including Willie, and Bob Shannon, Aubrey, and Shelby, and Janita, so well that we were included in one of the first recordings of Precious Lord.
I started off working with Brother Gant and Sister Eudora Whitfield. And as they began to get older, I taken over the chorus. And of course, started directing the chorus at Michigan Avenue.
Hello, my name is Juanita Hill. I arrived in Chicago in 1965 and began attending Michigan Avenue Church of Christ. Sister Eudora Whitfield kindly took me under her wings at Michigan Avenue because she thought I looked just like some of her nieces. It was Sister Whitfield and Sister Agnes Shannon who encouraged me to join the Youth Harmonizers. So in 1966, I started singing with the chorus under the direction of Brother Willie Carter, who just happened to be the nephew of Sister Whitfield and Sister Shannon.
And then at Michigan Avenue, I worked with Darwin Mason there. And then Brother Wendell Gunn came to Michigan Avenue. He was going to school here in Chicago College, and he placed his membership there at Michigan Avenue. So he started working with, assisting us in directing the chorus. So we had a lot of fun working together. One great memory, and then, working with them, one great memory is I remember 1978 when the ministers came to myself, Darwin, and Dewey Jr., asked us would we organize a citywide group and for the crusade.
One of my greatest recollections is when we had the first crusade.
I worked in tandem with Willie and Dugan Jr. with the first crusade chorus in 1979. We were all young, but of course I was the youngest. But these two established choral directors welcomed me, probably because I was so enthusiastic about singing.
Man, I still think about that and I get chills because we were young and we were allowed to be part of it and to be part of the evangelistic part, but being part of the chorus was phenomenal. The rehearsals were grueling because, you know, back then your dad was like, it's gonna be perfect or we're not gonna do it. Pretty much just like he still is now. But
Willie Carter you're speaking of.
Yes, Brother Willie Carter. He was dedicated, he was determined, he wanted us to be good in terms of our singing and representing what we were supposed to represent. So I remember that as a younger person, the crusade and the first night that we sang on that big old stage. I can still see it and remember saying, wow, we're really here. We're really here.
And we had a lot of fun doing that. We reached out to all the congregation within the city and even out of the city, as far as Gary, to sing with us. Mm-hmm. And we had organized about 100 voice choir to sing. And we built a great relationship across the city with all these different people.
Eventually, as the crusade grew, we joined forces with other choral directors and worship leaders from around the country. Among them was Ray Walker from Nashville, Tennessee, and the late Curtis McCullum from Los Angeles.
I also have a distinct memory of the impact that Brother Darwin Mason, along with my dad, had on me and Dugan Jr. because they assembled this 100-voice choir to sing at the first Church of Christ crusade. And they were the directors. So I would go to every rehearsal. And I can remember running around the church buildings. We would rehearse sometimes at Sheldon Heights, sometimes on the west side and Monroe. At the age of just 10 or 11 years old, I can remember running around the church buildings while they would be leading the choir and teaching the songs. And although I was playing with the other kids whose parents were in the group, I was always listening and paying attention. Always. I knew every single song. I knew every note, knew every harmony. I knew all the words beginning to end. And it was a very proud moment to see, my dad up on that big stage at that big theater, the Erie Crown Theater, and also to see the album that they recorded, to see it in our home, bring it home and look on the back, and there's my dad's picture on that album. At the time, I didn't even know that he had recorded a 45 record back when he was in his 20s. But to be able to see that was just a really proud moment for me.
We still have a lot of memory of that even today, and friendship and fellowship with people across the city today from that great gathering. And that was back in 1979. Mm-hmm. And the beautiful thing about it, a lot of souls were saved. A lot of people was baptized during that crusade that was held here in 1979. Now we had two or three more here in Chicago before it started going across the country. But we really enjoyed working with them. And not only that, passing this work on, after I began to phase out myself, I passed the work on first to Craig because Tony was in college at the time.
Willie, because
he is the reason that I'm directing the choir right now. I never even imagined, you know, directing. That wasn't something that I ever set out to do. And when I was 17 or 18, I was in the group and I had a couple of suggestions for some of the songs that we did. And Willie just said, well, show us what you're talking about. That happenstance turned into directing. But, you know, he knew what he was doing. he was ready to go. You know?
He's like, oh, Brother Carter took my advice. Well, maybe
I was like, what? and you know, after that, you know, he would get me to direct and everything. And that next thing I know, he giving me a plaque saying, this is yours, buddy. I'm through. But just the fact that he, you know, picked me and allowed me to, you know, take on that position and work with him, that, you know, that was huge.
All of this lets me know that the Michigan Avenue music experience still lives on. Craig is singing. Other members of my family are singing. And I cherish those thoughts and I cherish those memories.
You know, growing up with Darwin as your cousin, you know, because again, you know, he's a couple of years older than I am, and he was directing, you know, the Chatham chorus and, you know, singing like he does. So, you know, you looked up to him and it's like, but, and just, I don't know if you've been around him a lot, but what you see is the way he is. He's cool like that, you know, and he has been a very positive influence. And again, you know, when I started directing, we would all go to the same places, man. And, you know, those definitely, without question, are the two people that have influenced me the most as far as, you know, the chorus and directing and things of that nature.
And then, of course, the transition from Michigan Avenue to the Sheldon Heights, the chorus continued to sing. And a young lady by the name of Orbit Sherd developed the chorus called the Little Angels. These was a little group that wanted to sing Our Children. And she worked with this group, and they in turn inherit the name of Youth Harmonizers.
The Little Angels, the Youth Harmonizers, had a tremendous impact on my life in such a phenomenal way. Although God was using me to work in them and sing songs of inspiration, they were in fact strengthening my Christian work, an example of faith. The Little Angel Youth Group just loved singing. We would sing on programs at church and local congregations. Wherever we were at, Brother John would always call them his little angels. The Little Angels really enjoyed singing Christmas carols. When the Little Angels became older, their name was changed to the Youth Harmonizer.
And then in the 1980s, the young men of the chorus there decided they wanted to develop a quintet led by Anthony Carter, and they called themselves the Soul Seekers. And boy, they really could sing, and everyone enjoyed loving and hearing them sing. And then the young adults developed a chorus that was called Dedicated. This was back in the 1990s. And they really could sing, and everyone enjoyed loving and hearing them sing.
I can remember as a teen, you know, I saw what my dad was doing, but I was influenced by Jesse Murrah and the Music Makers to go in a little different direction.
Back then, they were called the Music Makers. Now they are called Straight Company. Those group of people came to a program we had, brought their equipment, and at that time we wasn't used to churches bringing equipment. So it also helped me want to learn how to work the sound system and everything like that, because we were just used to what was there and we didn't know that it could be a better thing. So they would just sing songs that would just move your soul. Jesse, Mark, it was a whole list of them, and they were just fantastic, and they had great showmanship. That inspired me, and your uncle Tony Carter. We started a group. I believe it was maybe like 12 years old, 11, 12 years old, called the Soul Seekers.
Corin Underwood, and Reggie Gilbert, and Anthony Shannon, and little Jawanza Shannon, and Dana White, who's now Dana Hampton, was in that group. Jawanza was our little Michael Jackson. I guess I was Jermaine, something like that. But anyway, I can remember our first time singing was at the youth conference, Midwest Youth Conference. And Brother Charles Smith, he's gone on to glory now. He was our youth counselor. And he was trying to coach us. Charles didn't know how to sing, but he was doing the best he could do. But we got out there and did our thing and sang one of Jesse's songs, If You Need a Shoulder to Cry On. And Jawanza hit that high note. And boy, all the little girls started screaming, and that was it. It was a wrap. This is something that we knew that we were going to continue to do.
And it was fun. We would go to the different classes and everything, but your uncle, well, not your uncle, your grandfather and the other adults they wouldn't go to sleep. They'll be in the hallways walking back and forth, making sure that we didn't get out or sneak out and go do something, thing like that. So we had wardens all the time. But it was good. It was good that they looked out for us. They was looking out for our best interest. And as far as recording, it's times when me and Tony sang with Dedicated. That was also a group with me, your Uncle Tony, Jawanza Shannon, Craig Harding.
Actually, I've only sung with two small groups. I sang with Dedicated, and that was family.
Your mother, Linda Underwood, and we started a new sound. Your uncle wrote different songs. Actually, he was almost like Prince. He wrote songs that was already for the future and everything. He was ahead of his time. So and when we did our recording, we would record all the way to like 1 in the morning, 1 to 2 in the morning. And everybody's like, we got to get up at 4 o'clock to get up for work. But it was just fun. It was worth doing it. And then the product that we put out, everyone was inspired. So it was a great thing to do.
The ladies from the course, adult course, decided that they wanted to develop a group, and they developed a group called the Sweet Inspiration. And of course, they would travel all around singing. Everyone loved to hear their melodious voice singing during a very concert that we had.
When I think back over the many years the Lord blessed me to be a part of the music ministry at Michigan Avenue, Sheldon Heights, I just rejoice. From singing with the Sweet Inspirations and so many settings over a period of time, they truly allow me to be a part of many lives and in and out of the church. The Sweet Inspiration were invited to sing at numerous hospitals, weddings, homes, parties, conferences, and more.
My son has followed in my footsteps, much the same as Tony has followed in his dad, Willie's.
And then later, when Tony finished college and came home, then I passed the work on to both of them, to Craig and Tony.
The eras that affected me the most were when everybody was at Sheldon Heights. Not that Michigan Avenue didn't matter. It's just we're talking about transitioning from different periods. And so I talked to you about being a girl, but as I grew up and they moved to Sheldon Heights, I didn't think it could get better, but it was a difference. I knew all the time that, Tony, you were gifted. I knew that. And just going to different programs and listening to the group under your direction, we already knew you had it.
I just feel blessed to have been a part of it. It's something that I've always known that I wanted to do, something I believe that, I was being prepared to do my whole life. I can remember when I was a little guy, my sister making me harmonize with her down in the basement, holding a brush as a pretend microphone. I'm Herb and she's Peaches. That's just what we did. That's what we did. And going to church every Sunday and Wednesday, and my dad's the song worship leader, and he's singing, and I'm seeing him up there. It just made an impression on me.
You mentioned your sister, Sister Linda Underwood. Didn't she direct the youth harmonizers at the Sheldon Heights Church of Christ?
Yes, she did. And she had a great young bass back then by the name of Carrington that was up and coming. And she took over for my auntie Aubrey as she got elderly and everything like that. And I even participated with them. So I had the pleasure of singing with your grandfather. I had the pleasure of singing with your uncle, Tony Carter. And I had the pleasure of singing with you.
I could not be any more happier to see the legacy that started years and years ago that's still going on today through you guys. You guys wasn't even around, but now you are working, singing, and you love singing in the church, as well as choir, and developing your own little group yourself, singing the good news of God. And that is so wonderful.
So which robe did you wear, Brenda, when you were in the choir, the powder blue or the maroon?
I had a maroon one. I think I had a powder blue one too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brother Gilbert, you sang in the choir too, right?
Yeah, I didn't do powder blue. That was before they changed colors before I got a robe.
The powder blue robes were the bomb, man.
Yeah, it was. But that was the color back in the day. That was a 1970s color.
Yeah,
it just wasn't the color I chose. Hallelujah.
Good evening and welcome to our concert. We are pleased that you decided to join us, and we guarantee that you will have a wonderful time tonight. Our theme this year is God is our provider. Isn't God a wonderful provider? All of our needs and many of our wants. Tonight, we want you to reflect on God as your provider as you listen to the wonderful songs from our group. We have something tonight for the young and the old. We have some old school singing and some new school singing. We even have an old school MC. And I am your new school MC. My name is Carrington Calhoun. My dad is Kelvin Calhoun. My mom is Deirdre Calhoun, is a member of the group. Let me introduce our old school MC. Let's welcome Brother Matthew Miles to the stage.
Good evening, everybody. How about it one more time for Karen?
When I would go to programs, my father would take us even before he started groups, we would go hear singing. And what stands out in my mind, I don't know if this is the correct title or not, but when they would call Michigan Avenue, they would come down the aisle singing, "Oh, hear the Master's call." Oh my gosh. And it was just, first of all, they came down the aisle singing. So that was like, wow, you do that in the Church of Christ, you go. But it was just so perfect. I can remember every line. And when we get home or we get in the car going home, my father would still be singing it. We would sing it. And so he ended up wanting to teach it to his choir because he thought that was the #1 song in the brotherhood. But nobody could direct a song like Sister Whitfield. And nobody could sing it like, well, I was going to say Sheldon Heights, but nobody could sing it like Michigan Avenue. Nobody.
Willie Carter was my first mentor. I almost said idol because I always wanted to sing like Willie and Cersei. They were the two standout tenors in the chorus.
Some of the favorite songs that I had, Samuel Cersei led them.
Each had distinctive, clear voices. They were always on perfect pitch. I remember trying to imitate them during rehearsals. I thought they were the best singers that I had ever heard. I still hold Willie in high regard because he was not only an excellent singing talent, he led worship service with enthusiasm, but never tried to be a showman like so many of our young people do today. He's always treated me like a peer rather than an understudy.
Back at the Michigan Avenue Church of Christ, while singing with the youth harmonizers, there was a young man that I loved to sing with by the name of Samuel Cersei that had a great tenor voice and loved to sing. One of his favorite songs that he loved so very much was entitled "In the Upper Room." And boy, he could really sing that song. Everyone enjoyed listening to the chorus sing when Cersei would take off on this lead part. And then I would just come in and do my thing.
And I promise you, Brother Cersei would sing in the upper room. He would start it. If he sang anything, we would be screaming. He had a beautiful voice, and he was so personable. You know, it wasn't like I can sing so great. The spirit and the words of the song just came out of him. I think in that group, if you would ask anybody, it would be in rotation like this: Samuel Cersei, Bob Shannon,
worthy of the shame and worthy of your name.
Sheldon.
To be worthy of your dying for me.
You were one of the lead soloists of the group. Do you remember your first solo?
Yes. That solo was "Let Mount Zion Rejoice."
The selection of songs that we used to sing, like "In the Upper Room," "Worthy," "Precious Lord," "Didn't My Lord Deliver Daniel," "Woe," "Salvation," "Adoramuste," and "The Lord Cried, Oh, Daniel, Daniel, Servant of the Lord," one of my favorites. And then we used to sing songs like Anybody here sing My Old Friend Martin? And where have all the flowers gone?
It's my understanding that the chorus at that time sung mostly spiritual songs. So what were your favorites and why?
My favorite was Precious Lord.
One song that comes to my mind, there's many, but one that particularly comes to my mind, it's a song that stood the test of time. And that song is Precious Lord.
We sung many spirituals, but Precious Lord was like I was talking to God and he was answering me. So out of all the songs that we have sung, Precious Lord was my favorite.
I remember growing up as a kid, and this still impacts me to this very day, that, and you really don't pay attention. See, kid, when you're a child, everything seems big. Everything seems gigantic. And it was my first, I would, really impactful moment had to do with the fact that the Michigan Avenue Church of Christ Adult Chorus made a 45. I mean, I was just like, I said, man, this is amazing. You know, I mean, now let me say now, a 45 is a vinyl press record. And it was back in the late 60s. And I'm saying, man, we do have some singing here. We don't, I'm trying to look what's on the pop charts.
Take my hand, lead me on, let me stay. I am tired, I am weak,
You know, just back in the day, I said, man, this church is making a record. You know, I mean, well, we about to, I don't know if I should look for us on the, back in the day it was the Ed Sullivan show. So I look for him to be, to be there on a Sunday night. But it was impactful to know that singing meant so much that they pressed a record.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so many songs. I guess the one that ironically that has, kind of sustained over the years is Sending Up My Tempo. That's been a staple with Sheldon for all these years, man. I remember growing up, listening to James and Shelby sing that song, and it's still, it's still so powerful, man. And, people ask us to sing it now, and it affects people in such a positive way. And, and that's one of the ways that I really got started singing.
3 of my favorite spiritual songs were taught and directed by Brother Wendell Gunn. Salvation is Created, Jesu Priceless Treasure, and Woe Unto Them, taken from Isaiah chapter 5.
A precious song that has impacted me over the year is We've Come This Far by Faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in his holy word. He's never failed me yet. Singing, oh, can't turn around. we've come this far by faith.
One that really touched me a lot when we sang was "Stand by Me," and but it's a very meaningful song, and it tells us that we can call on God to help us when we are having our trials and our troubles and our tribulations, and He will be there for us. So it's a song that really makes an impact when you hear it on how you can rely on God to stand by you when you're having troubles and trials.
Then along came Tony, who wrote and directed tons of songs. 3 of my favorite songs that he wrote is When It Rains Outside, Sweet Peace of Mind, and You Are Blessed.
When I got into college, my dad had turned the choir over to Craig at the time. And I always knew that I was going to come back and join Craig. I had even started writing songs. And one of the goals that I had was to implement my original material into the choir so that we could share a little something different with the world than what they had been getting thus far.
The most outstanding musical that I went to at Sheldon Heights was when you introduced the album. I think it's called Never Let Me Go. And I mean, it wasn't just singing. It was like the group had said, if they let us loose, we're free. And they sang with the spirit, but every song was like, could make you cry. Every song, every word of every song was so impactful. And then when Brother Gilbert and Brother Smith stepped out, I was thrilled.
You know, I remember singing with Charles Smith, my brother, my friend, my co-minister. We became a duo or a dynamic duo. I don't know if it was a duet, but it was definitely duo.
Well, you guys weren't singing, you were rapping. You were like Biggie and Tupac of the Church of Christ.
Well, you know, that was back in the day. You know, and you know, just being able to that was a historic moment. Because, you know.
Well, we looked forward to it when you did it because we never knew what y'all were going to do on it.
Just so our listeners will know, we recorded a song with the choir called God is Good. And we brought in Brother Gilbert and Brother Charles Smith, who was the associate minister with Brother Gilbert at the time at Sheldon Heights. And you guys preached over the singing and went back and forth and traded off back and forth and just took it up to a fever pitch.
Yeah, they did.
It was just awesome. You felt like the heavens were opening when you listened to that song. And it was a wonderful privilege for me to be able, when Charles passed recently, to give copies of that CD to his daughters.
Wow.
And we will forever have his voice captured on that recording. So it's a blessing.
I think it just has special meaning for everybody in the group and for you as a director, since you wrote the songs. When they sang keep holding on, it was just, but that Never Let Me Go. And Sweet Peace of Mind used to be like the Chicago anthem for us, you know. It was like, they're going to sing that. Tell them to sing Sweet Peace of Mind.
My all-time favorite song is Sweet Peace of Mind. That's my, you know, and you know, it's almost like we ought to have a book to tell how all the songs at Sheldon Heights that were originated there were made. And I know about that song. I won't steal it, but you know, and probably my favorite soloist of that song is Crystal Carter. Every time she would come back to Sheldon Heights, I would say, you just got to sing a verse or two of that. And she would just be in the auditorium, just blow out a couple verses because, you know, her voice was perfect for that song.
Crystal.
And you know, it's still sung well, but when you hear it and it's sung like the way she was able to sing it, it really left an impressionable mark.
That's definitely one of my favorite songs. I like the words of the song, but I really like Gilbert said, I really like Crystal singing it. I mean, she took that song and she made it her own. And but the words of the song, the power of the song, particularly as we've gone through the ages, have really had a tremendous impact on our lives.
Yeah. Can I interview you for a moment?
No.
What a verse did you write of that song?
I helped Tony write a verse.
Brenda's being modest. Sister Gilbert helped me write the lyrics to the verse of Sweet Peace of Mind. The second verse, actually, she wrote it. She just out and out wrote it. I had come up with the chorus like I usually do. I come up with the hook, and I taught the hook to the choir, and I laid out the backgrounds, but I didn't have the verse written. And I asked Sister Gilbert, could she write it? She was the very first soloist, and she wrote that verse for herself. And then she graciously handed it over to Crystal Carter to take it to the next level. But thank you.
Once Crystal sang it, I never wanted to sing it again.
When the storms of life come and you need someone, he'll be there for you. And when you don't think you can stand, he'll reach out his hand. He'll be there to see you through. But that's just one reason why Jesus,
So this last 20 years has been the bomb for us. You all have provided us with so much music, so much talent. And to see that Shelby and Robbie Shannon still singing, I was sad when your dad, Brother Carter, stopped singing and stopped directing, because his voice is still great. And so just this legacy that you leave and that he left, you all can be so very proud.
But Tony, there's another song that I like that you did with the group. It's during the time when Kim Hebert was here.
Yes.
It's Jesus. Tony, we listen to that song to this day. That was like, it reminded me of a theatrical song in the end of a performance. It was just, the words of it were good, but the way you put that all together, you're still so talented.
Yeah. And by the way, you know, she had to start at Sheldon Heights singing. Now she's on the big screen with Aretha now, Kim Hebert, you know.
We were able to record albums, tapes, and CDs. We won a CAMA Award, Christian Acapella Music Award.
Love the song, Give Me a Song, that your daddy wrote. I mean, he writes so many. I love a lot of them, but that's one that's really stick close to my heart. Give me a song like Jesus.
Give me a song. I'll never forget the moment that song was created. It's sung all over the brotherhood. You know, give me a song. I think every member of Sheldon Heights could almost sing. They can't sing as good as Cammy and Tony. Like Jesus. You know, and I remember, and you know, that was after a sermon I had preached. And you know, you preach sermons, but sometimes you may miss a point. And Tony mentioned about give me that Jesus, after all he went through at the Last Supper, you know, after all the, you know, people gonna betray him and people gonna deny him, you know, at the end of all of that, he said, give me a song. And I saw that conversation with you, Tony, and how your thought process went into that. And I started to think, this is what I thought. I said, man, you know, to have a song come from a sermon that I preached, and to have somebody that was impactful, I said, Lord, you know, sometimes you don't know, you know, how a song can, have its genesis.
So, and the chorus of singing, and all over the country, not only just our chorus of singing his music, but there's a group all over the country that are still singing his music that he's written, and that's wonderful to be able to have a legacy like that.
It makes me so proud when my family and I are traveling and we go to church out of town, visiting a different congregation, and the worship leader gets up on the mic and sings one of my songs. Doesn't even know I'm in the audience, probably doesn't even know that the song was written by me. Learned it off YouTube or someone else singing it. But got up and they're singing, and my kids always look at me like, Dad, they don't even know that's your song. But it's okay, because there's so many folks that have shared how these songs have been a blessing to them in their lives and in their sad times and in their celebration times. They're on the internet, they're on YouTube just singing my songs. It's just a blessing, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
My favorite trip was when we went to Nashville and went to Schrader Lane, and I believe that they were having regionals that weekend, if I'm not mistaken, but we didn't know what regionals were at the time. They invited us to come as a guest group. And at that point, we were about 40 deep with the choir. And again, we still had, that power. And, but one of the reasons it was my favorite trip was because we sang that Saturday night, and then Schrader Lane sang after we did. And one of the songs they did was If Anybody Has a Reason to Praise. That was the first time I ever heard anybody else do one of Tony's songs.
Really?
Yeah, we had recorded it, but I didn't know that it had gone out to the Brotherhood.
Okay.
And they sang that song and they modified it. So the next day I got up when we got ready to sing on that Sunday. I said, well, you all might not have known this, but Schrader Lane sang the song last night, and it was actually written by my little brother, Tony Carter. And I said, now, they changed it a little, but we're going to sing it the right way.
Right.
I strongly believe the world has been and will continue to be blessed by our experiences. I appreciate having the opportunity to share these thoughts and memories. Maybe my grandchildren and their children will get some sense of the great beginning many of us had at 6228 South Michigan Avenue.
Craig and I have been partners in crime on this journey since the 80s, late 80s and early 90s. And Craig has consistently directed the choir that entire time, since the mid 80s, maybe even the early 80s up until now. Whereas I've been in and out. I had 20 consistent years, but then had a little break in there. But Craig carried the baton the entire way, and he's to be commended. So, but we wrote some hits. I mean, we wrote Daily Bread together. We wrote Show Me the Way to Go together. We wrote songs with Dedicated, like Take My Life, Make It New, Nothing Less Will Ever Do. Craig and I have partnered on this journey, and it's just been a wonderful ride. And I just want to give him his props. He's always energetic. When he's directing, he's going to bring the fire. He's going to bring the energy. He's going to bring the praise. And if you in a bad mood, you might as well leave, because if you stay, he's going to turn that frown upside down. That's how the saying goes. So yeah, I also want to give a shout of appreciation to the leadership team that he and I assembled. All of those folks behind the scenes who helped make this a success. We're talking about the leadership team of my sister, Dee Dee. We've got Joyce Donald, Joyce Hibbert, Dana Hampton, and of course Craig and I, and Monica Daly, our librarian, and Jeannie Davis. I mean, everybody pitched in. Our section leaders, folks, our uniform committee. I mean, I can't name all of the names, so please don't blame my heart. But, you know, it's my head. But all of you who participated, even just coming consistently to rehearsals on those Tuesdays and Sundays, rotating back and forth, we appreciate you. And many lives have been touched as a result. This ministry has been a powerful one. The music has also been powerful. Our goal has always been to make an impact, not for ourselves, but for the Lord. God's the reason why we've been doing this. He's the reason why we sing. And we want to say thank you, God, above all. And we pray that these songs and this ministry will continue to touch hearts and lives over many years to come.
You know what? Let me just say this. I come to an end. Singing was the thread that held a lot of people together in our city. It was a commonality. You get, even today, you sing, you get in the crowd. Yeah. Chicago singers come together, you know, and they come back to the mother church of singing, which is Sheldon Heights, Michigan Avenue Church. And we've had a history of some of the greatest concerts. We went to places and brought music. People came to us and brought music. But at the end of the day, there was healing. There was love. There was encouragement. And we did what was done in the Bible many times. People sung at the times of great celebration. And I was reading this past week of Exodus 14. The people were, they were singing when God brought them through. Singing is one of the most powerful things. Mary, when she had a baby, was singing. You know, without singing, David at the end of battles, he was singing. We don't know if people sung good, but we know they were singing, because singing, inspires, motivates, heals, comforts, strengthens, blesses. Thank God for the music ministry of the Michigan Avenue Sheldon Heights Church.
Amen.
I was crucified. Do you remember? Life began anew. Your search was over. Christ was in view. Chicago, 1931. There were souls on the south side to be won. So they met on Michigan Avenue, and the gospel was free saving many of you. And the membership began to grow. Soon Sheldon Heights became our home. Reaching throughout the community, souls are saved like you and me. The journey we made to Sheldon Heights.
This is one of the happiest moments of my life.